At this point, you should have entered your own data into the baseline table. If you haven't already done so, you should save your numbers file. You do want to be logged in as yourself on your computer as opposed to logged in under guest because you want to be able to save and access this file later. What we're going to do now is see how to turn your data into a graph so that we can look at your electricity usage. So you can follow along and repeat this process of creating a graph using your own data. I'm going to show you an example using the data that I had previously entered into my baseline data spreadsheet. So the first thing we need to think about is which things do we want to show on our graph. I'd like to show a graph that has date across the bottom and then a bar for kilowatt hours used each day. I don't really need to graph the actual number that's on my meter. Some of you will have numbers here that are quite low in the few thousands. Some of you may have numbers here that are incredibly high. You may have 80 or 90,000 there. And really what that's showing is how many kilowatt hours of electricity have been used since that meter was installed. And so I don't really care about what has happened in the long ago past to get that meter reading up to being so high. All I care about was how many kilowatt hours did your family use during the days you were testing. So I'd like a graph that shows date versus total kilowatt hours used. So what I need to do is to select those two columns. So first I'm going to select the date column there, and I'm only going to select the entries that I need. Notice that it's circled over in blue, which shows I've selected that region. I need to also select this total kilowatt hours used selection. In order to select two regions in the spreadsheet at once, what I need to do is first hold down the Command key, and then I can select this second region as well. So now you can see that I have the dates and the total kilowatt hours both selected. Once you manage to get both these regions selected and make sure that they're both the same length, so they both go from row 1 down to row 9, then we're going to go up to the chart menu on the top. The chart menu is a pull down, and we're going to make a bar graph. And the bar graph immediately pops into our spreadsheet down below here. And you'll see that it has dates across the bottom. It has a legend that shows the blue bar means total kilowatt hours used that day. And it has a title that right now just says Chart 3. So there's some things that I'd like to do to clean up this chart a little bit. The first is I'd like to change the title. So I might say this is something like kilowatt hours used per day in normal daily living. So this is the data for before you made any changes to your family's behavior of how you used electricity. So I put a title that's a little more meaningful. The other thing I noticed is that these dates down the bottom here, they're all sort of running together and I can't really tell which date goes with which bar. So one thing that I can do is I can use the inspector. You see the inspector is already popped up here, and right now chart is what's selected. But if I go over to where there's a ruler here, it's called the metrics inspector, notice that there's this rotate thing down at the bottom. This will change the angle of the text in the key here. So if I select the text that's across the bottom, grab this rotate, and I turn it, now I can see that the dates line up much better with the bars. This is easier to read, except for the fact that now it overlaid this kilowatt hours used that day. So I can grab the kilowatt hours used that day, and I can move it to wherever I'd like. I can move it down below if I'd like it to be below my graph. I can scrunch it up, and I can move it up to the side. You can pretty much move this where you would like. Once you get your graph looking the way you would like, the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a screenshot. We're going to take a little picture of this graph. That picture of the graph is something that you'll use when you make your final presentation. To take a screenshot of just a little part of a screen on a Mac, you need to hold down 3 keys at once. First, hold down the Shift key, then the Command key, then hit the number 4. When you see this little crosshairs appear, you can let all 3 of those go. Move the crosshairs to the top corner of the area you want to take a picture of, and then click, and then drag, and notice that this gray box is showing up. I'm still holding down the mouse. When I reach the end, this looks like the picture I'd like to take. I let off the mouse, and you heard that little camera sound. Now I've taken a picture of this that I can use in my presentation.